3. Virtues Stoics use to master life's chaos. Picture this. You wake up to the noise of the world already pressing in on you. Notifications flood your phone. The news screams of political unrest, economic collapse, natural disasters, wars that feel too close for comfort. The demands of your work and relationships pile up before you even sip your first coffee. You feel as though you're caught in a storm, waves crashing, wind howling, no ground beneath your feet. Life's chaos never waits for permission. It intrudes, it overwhelms, it batters. Now imagine a different scene. You stand in the same storm, but something in you is unshaken. The winds rage, the waves roar, but your mind is not tossed about. You see clearly, you act calmly, and you live with a kind of power that cannot be stolen by the world's turmoil. This is not fantasy. This is the very strength the Stoics cultivated. They lived in times more violent, more uncertain, and more unstable than many of us can imagine. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, led an empire riddled with war, famine, and plague. Epictetus endured life as a slave under brutal masters. Seneca, advisor to emperors, navigated the treacherous politics of Rome, where a single word could mean exile or death. And yet, in their writings, we find calm voices speaking across the centuries, teaching us how to endure, how to thrive, how to master chaos. The truth is, chaos is not new. It's not a modern invention of fast-paced society or social media. It has always been here, lurking in the uncertainty of tomorrow, in the fragility of health, in the instability of human affairs. The difference between those crushed by it and those who transcend it lies not in luck, not in wealth, not in status, but in virtue. The Stoics discovered that when you anchor yourself in virtue, storms may come, but they cannot sink you. This is what I want to share with you today. 3 timeless virtues the Stoics used to master life's chaos. They are not abstract philosophies for dusty bookshelves. They are tools, shields, compasses, and torches for your own battles. If you embrace them, you too can step into the chaos of the world with calm strength. You too can learn to live above the noise. And it begins with understanding why chaos is unavoidable and why virtue, not fortune, is the only true anchor we have. Life will never stop being uncertain. The Stoics remind us that we live in a world where the ground can be pulled out from beneath us at any moment. Empires rise and fall, leaders are betrayed, loved ones are taken without warning. Health can crumble in a single night. Fortune is fickle. She spins her wheel without care for who sits at the top today. This truth is not meant to depress us, but to wake us. Chaos is not the enemy. It is the natural condition of the world. To expect a life without it is to set yourself up for despair. The Stoics taught that while we cannot command the winds of fortune, we can command ourselves. This is where the secret lies. What happens to us is not fully ours to choose, but how we respond is always within our power. This distinction between what is ours and what is not is the first great lesson of wisdom. We cannot stop storms, but we can learn to sail them. We cannot prevent others from betraying us, but we can choose not to betray our own principles. We cannot guarantee tomorrow's outcome, but we can act with courage and justice today. Why does this matter? Because in a world of chaos, people cling to the wrong anchors. They chase security in wealth, thinking money can protect them from life's storms. But wealth is fragile. They chase fame, thinking recognition will give them permanence. But fame is fleeting. They cling to relationships, status, pleasure, yet all of these can be stripped away in a moment. Virtue is the only anchor that holds, because virtue depends on nothing outside of us. Wisdom, courage, justice, these cannot be stolen. They are not subject to fortune's whims. They belong to us as long as we choose them. This is why the Stoics said, "Fortune governs the external world, but virtue governs the internal world." To master chaos is not to silence the storm, but to rule oneself. And the man who rules himself is freer than any king, more unshaken than any fortress. The Stoics were not content with vague notions of goodness. They built a clear framework, a map of the inner life, a compass pointing toward the highest form of human excellence. At the core of their philosophy stood the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. To them, these were not optional ideals for philosophers or rulers. They were the essential qualities required to live a good life. They believed that fortune could strip a man of everything except the character formed by these virtues. Lose them, and you are a slave to circumstance. Keep them, and you remain free, even in chains. But there is a reason why we will focus on three of these virtues today. While temperance, self-control, is vital, the Stoics understood that wisdom, courage, and justice form the backbone of strength in chaos. Wisdom is the light by which we discern truth from illusion, control from uncontrollable. Courage is the strength that enables us to act rightly despite fear, to face hardship without surrender. Justice is the virtue that draws us out of selfishness and roots us in duty, harmony, and service to others. Together, these three create a force strong enough to endure storms that break lesser men. They are the foundation of mastery in a world that cannot be mastered. Consider the times in which Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations. Rome was at war. Plague ravaged the empire. His own family was fractured with betrayal. And yet, his writings are not cries of despair, but quiet reflections of order amidst disorder. Why? Because his compass was not external success, but inner virtue. Seneca, living under the shadow of Nero, counseled calm and rational endurance while surrounded by cruelty and corruption. Epictetus, once a slave, taught his students that freedom lies not in chains or the lack of them, but in the mastery of one's own mind. In every case, when the external world became chaos, it was the internal order of virtue that preserved them. The three virtues we will explore are not distant ideals, but living practices. They are not abstract debates for scholars. They are tools to be wielded daily. Wisdom, courage, justice. When they become habits, they transform chaos into a training ground, suffering into strength, uncertainty into opportunity. Let us begin with wisdom, the first and most essential, for it teaches us how to see the world rightly. Without wisdom, courage is reckless, and justice misguided. With wisdom, we begin to walk the path the Stoics laid down for us, a path toward freedom, clarity, and calm in the face of life's storms. Wisdom to the Stoic was not mere knowledge. It was not filling the mind with facts or clever arguments. Wisdom was insight into the nature of reality, especially the crucial distinction between what is within our power and what is not. Epictetus summed it up in the opening lines of his Enchiridion. Some things are up to us and others are not. That single line, if truly understood, has the power to transform how one lives. The man who confuses the two is perpetually frustrated, angry at the world for refusing to obey him. The man who knows the difference is calm, for he only spends his energy on what he can truly control: his thoughts, his choices, his character. Wisdom is the lantern carried into the storm. Without it, you stumble, grasping at illusions, demanding that the uncontrollable bend to your will. With it, you see clearly the boundaries of your influence, and you walk with purpose through the darkness. Marcus Aurelius returned to this truth again and again. He reminded himself not to waste his life desiring what was beyond his control, but instead to focus on ruling his own mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That sentence is not theory. It is instruction for survival. Imagine a leader confronted by a crisis. A plague spreads through the city. He cannot stop the plague itself. But wisdom tells him he can govern his response. He can organize aid. He can calm the people. He can act with reason rather than panic. His influence cannot extend to the disease, but it can extend to his decisions. Now imagine an ordinary person today, overwhelmed by the noise of social media, by news of conflict, by endless demands. Wisdom whispers the same truth. You cannot control the world's noise, but you can choose what enters your mind, what you give attention to, what you allow to disturb your peace. Epictetus, in chains, discovered freedom because wisdom showed him that though he could not control his body's fate, he could control his response. They could strike him, insult him, enslave him, but they could not force him to think wrongly unless he consented. This is wisdom in action. Seeing the true battlefield lies within. It is not about changing the storm, but about learning to navigate through it with clarity. Practically, wisdom requires discipline. It means pausing before reaction, asking yourself, is this within my control? It means journaling each evening, reflecting on where you wasted energy on what is not yours to command. It means questioning your impulses, separating truth from assumption. In an age of distraction, wisdom also means guarding your attention. Just as the Stoics trained their reason against the temptations of Roman politics, so must we guard our reason against the constant flood of noise and opinion that masquerades as truth. Wisdom allows us to discern what matters and what is irrelevant. The Stoics knew that chaos blinds those who cannot see, but to the wise, chaos reveals itself as the stage upon which the art of life is practiced. For every challenge is an opportunity to apply what we know, to focus on what is ours, to let go of what is not, to walk through storms with clarity. Wisdom does not remove the storm. It teaches us how to see through the illusion of its power. It reminds us that fortune governs events, but virtue governs our response. And the man who knows this walks calmly even in the eye of the hurricane. Wisdom becomes most visible not in theory, but in action. One of the greatest illustrations of this is Epictetus himself. Born into slavery, crippled from beatings, deprived of status and comfort, he had every reason to live in bitterness. Yet he chose a different path. Through wisdom, he saw that his true freedom was untouched. Chains could bind his legs, but not his will. His master could command his body, but not his reason. He discovered that wisdom is not dependent on external privilege. It is the property of anyone who dares to see the truth about control and surrender. Imagine the moment he realized this. The iron shackles on his ankle, the insults of a master who thought he owned him. These were outside of his command. But within, there was a fortress of choice, untouched and impenetrable. From that fortress, he could decide whether to respond with rage, despair, or calm strength. He chose strength. This was wisdom lived, not written. And in time, as a free man, he would teach students that the chains that most enslave us are not physical, but mental. Anger, fear, and desire bind tighter than iron. To be wise is to see this, and in seeing, to begin breaking the chains. In our own time, the world offers no shortage of chains. We live in an age of misinformation, endless noise, and constant demands for our attention. People argue about things they cannot control, obsess over headlines that do not involve them, lose themselves in the chaos of gossip and comparison. The result is mental slavery. But the application of Stoic wisdom is as clear as it was in Epictetus's day. Ask yourself each time you feel overwhelmed, is this mine to control? If not, release it. If yes, then focus and act. The modern man who can do this will not be mastered by markets, by trends, by the shifting winds of public opinion. He will master himself, and that mastery is a fortress stronger than steel. Wisdom is not passive. It directs action. It shows us where to place our effort, where to let go, and where to endure. In doing so, it becomes the root of freedom. It does not silence the chaos of the world, but it silences the chaos within. And once the mind is calm, once it is ordered by reason, it can then face the next great challenge, to act with courage. For what good is seeing clearly if one does not act rightly in the face of fear? This is where the second virtue enters, courage, the armor of the Stoic. Courage is often misunderstood. Many think it means the absence of fear. But the Stoics knew that fear is natural, part of being human. Courage is not about feeling nothing in the face of danger. It is about acting rightly despite the presence of fear. To them, courage was the choice to endure pain, to face death, to stand firm in principle when the easier path was surrender. Without courage, wisdom remains idle. A man may know the right course, but without courage, he will lack the strength to walk it. Consider Seneca in his final hours. Condemned to death by Nero, he was given no mercy, no dignity, only the cold demand to end his own life. Many would have begged, wept, cursed fortune for such an unjust end. But Seneca met death as he had lived, with calm resolve. He opened his veins, spoke comfort to his friends, and turned even his death into a lesson. What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears, he once wrote, but he did not weep. He acted with courage, showing that even when all power is stripped away, the power of character remains. His courage transformed his death from an execution into a final act of philosophy. This is the essence of Stoic courage. It is armor for the soul. It does not stop the arrows of fortune from flying, but it lets us keep walking through them. Marcus Aurelius, beset by war on the empire's borders and plague within its cities, could have surrendered to despair. But he wrote to himself, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." Courage is not loud, it does not boast. Often it is quiet endurance, the decision to keep moving, to keep acting, to keep living in harmony with virtue, even when every instinct urges retreat. In our own lives, courage is demanded daily. It may not be the courage of the battlefield or the Senate floor, but it is no less real. It is the courage to speak truth when silence would be safer. It is the courage to stand for principle in workplaces where compromise is rewarded. It is the courage to face illness, loss, rejection, and failure without collapsing. The Stoic practice of voluntary discomfort trained this muscle. By sleeping on the floor, fasting, or wearing coarse clothes, they prepared themselves to endure hardship willingly, so that when involuntary hardship arrived, they would not be broken. We too can practice this. Small acts of bravery, daily choices that train us to meet greater trials with steady hearts. Courage is not a single act, it is a habit. Each time you resist fear, you strengthen the armor. Each time you surrender to it, the armor weakens. This is why the Stoics taught that courage is necessary not just for great crises, but for daily living. Without courage, wisdom and justice cannot be lived. For wisdom may show you the right path, but only courage can walk it. And justice may tell you your duty to others, but only courage can fulfill it in the face of danger. Thus, courage is the second pillar of mastery in chaos, the resolve to act, to endure, and to remain true when fear surrounds you. Cato the Younger is one of the clearest embodiments of Stoic courage in action. In the twilight of the Roman Republic, Julius Caesar's rise threatened to crush liberty beneath the weight of tyranny. Many bowed to Caesar's power, justifying their surrender with excuses of survival or advantage. But Cato refused. He stood in the Senate, a lone voice against corruption, unwilling to compromise principle for comfort. When Caesar seized power and the Republic collapsed into dictatorship, Cato chose death over submission. He fell on his own sword rather than live as a servant to a ruler he deemed unjust. Some called it stubbornness, but to the Stoics it was the highest form of courage, a refusal to let fear dictate the terms of one's life. Cato's example might feel distant, but the essence is timeless. Courage in the face of overwhelming pressure is required in every age. We are constantly tempted to compromise integrity for convenience, to bend principles for personal gain, to silence truth to avoid conflict. The courage of Cato is the courage we need when faced with a decision between what is easy and what is right. It may not demand the ultimate price of life, but it does demand the willingness to endure discomfort, ridicule, or loss in order to remain faithful to virtue. Modern chaos takes many forms. Sometimes it appears as political unrest or economic instability, demanding that we stand firm in a sea of uncertainty. Other times it is personal, standing up to a toxic relationship, leaving an unprincipled workplace, speaking truth when silence would protect us. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "Keep going, stand firm, do not yield." Each act of courage becomes a declaration that chaos cannot rule us. Fear loses its grip when we show it that we are willing to endure its presence without surrender. The Stoics viewed the world as a training ground. Life's chaos is not something to be avoided, but something to be used. Fear, they believed, is a test of character. By facing it, we discover the strength that fortune cannot grant and misfortune cannot take away. Courage transforms chaos into opportunity, an opportunity to prove to ourselves that we are not ruled by fear, but by reason and virtue. And once we learn to act courageously, we are ready to face the third great virtue, justice, which elevates us beyond the self and connects us to the whole of humanity. Justice for the Stoics was not merely the laws of the state or fairness in trade. It was the deep recognition that we are all part of a larger whole, a single body of rational beings bound together by nature. To live justly was to live in harmony with that whole, to fulfill our duty to others, and to act not only for personal good, but for the common good. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he was made for cooperation, like a hand or a foot or a tooth within the body. To resist this was to resist nature itself. Justice is the virtue that prevents Stoicism from becoming selfish. It is not enough to master chaos for one's own sake. The true Stoic masters chaos so that he may serve others amidst it. Marcus Aurelius, though plagued by illness and weighed down by personal grief, carried the burdens of an empire because he believed it was his duty. He did not see rulership as a privilege, but as an obligation to act justly, to place the welfare of Rome before his own comfort. He wrote to himself not to shrink from this duty, not to complain, but to remember that justice is the highest service of reason. In our time, justice may not look like ruling an empire, but it does look like choosing fairness when it costs us, choosing honesty when deceit could reward us, choosing compassion when indifference would be easier. It is treating others as fellow travelers in the storm rather than obstacles to be shoved aside. It is extending the circle of concern beyond ourselves to our families, communities, and even to strangers. The Stoic philosopher Heracles described these circles of concern as starting with the self, then family, then community, then humanity itself. Justice demands that we expand the circle outward, not shrinking into selfishness, but enlarging our care until it reflects the truth that all human beings are our kin. Chaos often tempts us into selfishness. In times of crisis, the instinct is to protect only ourselves, to hoard, to fight for survival without regard for others. But the Stoics saw this as the corruption of the soul. True mastery of chaos means rising above selfish instinct to act with justice, to see that our own flourishing is tied to the flourishing of others. The man who acts with justice steadies not only himself but those around him. In this way, justice transforms chaos into community. It turns storms into opportunities to serve, to bind wounds, to strengthen the bonds that make life meaningful. Justice also anchors us in purpose. When life feels meaningless, when chaos strips away our plans and achievements, justice reminds us that we still have a duty to others. That duty gives shape to our days and weight to our actions. The Stoics believed that to act unjustly is to harm oneself, for it is to live against nature. But to act justly, even in chaos, is to align with the order of the universe itself. In a world of disorder, justice restores harmony, not always outwardly but inwardly and spiritually. The history of Stoicism is filled not only with emperors and senators, but also with humble teachers who embodied justice even when the world rewarded them with persecution. Musonius Rufus, a Roman philosopher often called the Roman Socrates, was exiled multiple times for teaching principles that challenged corruption. Yet wherever he was sent, he continued to teach, instructing farmers, soldiers, and ordinary citizens alike. To him, justice was not suspended in hardship. It was precisely in hardship that justice mattered most. His students remembered him not just for his words, but for his fairness, his generosity, and his commitment to treating all people, slave or free, man or woman, as equally capable of virtue. This was justice in action, not a concept, but a life lived in harmony with duty to others. The Stoic Hierocles gave us a metaphor that helps us see justice as a practice rather than an ideal. He described each of us as standing at the center of expanding circles: self, family, community, nation, and finally, all of humanity. Our task, he said, is to draw these circles inward, treating those farther from us with the same care we naturally give to ourselves and those closest to us. This practice reshapes how we respond to chaos. Instead of shrinking into self-preservation, we enlarge our concern, recognizing that justice binds us to others in the storm. When society fractures, when fear makes men selfish, the Stoic remembers, we are parts of one body. To injure another is to injure oneself. Our own age has no shortage of injustice. Corruption thrives in politics, dishonesty poisons relationships, division erodes communities. In such a time, practicing Stoic justice means resisting the temptation to add to the chaos. It means telling the truth when lies would be easier, giving when selfishness is safer, standing for fairness when compromise would protect you. It means pausing before every decision to ask, does this serve only me, or does it serve the whole? Justice requires that we look beyond comfort, beyond advantage, and remember that we are here not only to endure the storm, but to help others endure it too. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." A bee cannot survive apart from the hive, and neither can we. Chaos teaches us this: we rise or fall together. The takeaway is simple yet profound. Justice turns chaos from a battlefield of selfish survival into a proving ground for service. It shows us that while we cannot stop storms, we can steady one another in them. Justice anchors the soul in purpose and binds us to something larger than ourselves. To live justly is to live in harmony with the universe itself, and such harmony brings calm even when the world is on fire. With wisdom, we see clearly. With courage, we endure and act. With justice, we give meaning to our endurance by serving the whole. And so, the three virtues are not separate. They are interlocking, each dependent on the other for its true power. Wisdom without courage is powerless. Imagine a man who knows the right thing but lacks the strength to act. His wisdom is wasted. Courage without wisdom is reckless. The fearless fool rushes into disaster because he cannot discern what is within his control or what is right to pursue. Justice without wisdom and courage is hollow, for one cannot truly serve others without clarity of vision and the strength to stand firm. Together, the three virtues form a triad, each completing the others. This is why the Stoics placed them at the center of their philosophy. They create balance, stability, and harmony within the self, even when the external world collapses. Picture a soldier on the battlefield. Wisdom tells him what is within his control, the discipline of his body, the steadiness of his mind, the clarity of his duty. Courage allows him to endure fear and face danger without faltering. Justice directs his courage toward protecting others rather than seeking glory. Alone, any one of these virtues might fail him. Together, they make him steadfast. Or consider a doctor in a plague-ridden city surrounded by death. Wisdom guides her to focus on what she can do: treat, comfort, and serve. Courage keeps her at her post when fear whispers to flee. Justice directs her skill toward the suffering, not for reward, but out of duty to humanity. In both cases, the interlocking of wisdom, courage, and justice creates a kind of unshakable foundation that no chaos can crumble. In our personal lives, the same pattern holds. A man facing the collapse of his marriage may see clearly, through wisdom, what is in his control and what is not. He may gather the courage to endure rejection, loneliness, or change. But it is justice that directs him to act fairly, to avoid bitterness, to consider the well-being of his children or partner rather than succumbing to selfish vengeance. Or a woman who loses her job may apply wisdom to see that her worth is not tied to employment. Courage gives her strength to face uncertainty, and justice directs her to serve others in her community, even in her own difficulty. The virtues together transform what might be devastation into an opportunity for growth, strength, and meaning. Chaos will always come. Fortune is fickle, the world unstable, but when wisdom, courage, and justice stand together within a person, chaos ceases to be a threat. It becomes instead the arena where virtue is tested and strengthened. The storm still rages, but the one who carries these three virtues within does not topple. He may bend, but he does not break. He may grieve, but he does not despair. He may face loss, but he does not lose himself. This is the power of the interlocking virtues. They create an inner fortress, a harmony that no storm can shatter. The Stoics did not leave their philosophy as lofty theory. They trained daily, like athletes of the mind and soul, to embody the virtues they revered. For them, wisdom, courage, and justice were not ideas to be admired from afar, but disciplines to be practiced every morning, every evening, and in every encounter of the day. To live stoically was to live deliberately, using life itself as the training ground. Just as a soldier drills before battle or an artist rehearses before performance, the Stoic sharpened his soul for the inevitable storms of fortune. Each day began with reflection. Marcus Aurelius rose before dawn to remind himself that he would meet people who were meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial. He did not write this to complain, but to prepare his mind. Morning reflection set the tone. Expect the difficulties, accept them, and meet them with virtue. This practice clears away the surprise that often turns chaos into despair. If you know storms will come, you are ready when they arrive. For us, this practice might mean taking 10 minutes at the start of the day to write or meditate on what lies ahead. Ask, what might disturb me today? What fears may arise? What opportunities to practice justice may appear? Prepare not with anxiety, but with readiness. Evening offered another discipline, journaling and review. Seneca advised examining oneself each night, asking, what bad habit have you cured today? What fault have you resisted? In what respect are you better? This was not to shame oneself, but to train like a craftsman, perfecting his art. The Stoic reviewed where wisdom failed, where fear triumphed, where selfishness replaced justice. Each night became an opportunity to learn, to grow, to rearm for the next day. Imagine ending your day not lost in distraction, but reflecting. Did I act with wisdom, focusing on what was mine to control? Did I meet fear with courage? Did I serve others with justice? This habit, practiced over months and years, builds a character unshaken by storms. They also practiced voluntary hardship. Seneca walked barefoot, fasted, and slept on hard surfaces, not because he lacked comfort, but because he refused to be ruled by it. Set aside a certain number of days, he wrote, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition I feared? By courting discomfort, the Stoics strengthened courage against life's unexpected blows. In our time, this could mean taking a cold shower, fasting, or spending a day without luxuries. Each act whispers to fortune, you cannot frighten me with what I have already embraced. And justice, too, demanded practice. The Stoics sought to act rightly in every interaction, no matter how small. Justice was not only in great deeds, but in daily kindness, fairness in trade, honesty in speech, patience with others. Musonius Rufus said that philosophy is nothing if not applied in action. For us, this might mean pausing before speaking to ensure our words do not wound unnecessarily, or taking time to help when it is inconvenient. Each small act of justice strengthens the habit until service becomes as natural as breathing. These practices are not meant to eliminate chaos, but to prepare us to live above it. Each reflection, each hardship, each act of justice lays another stone in the fortress of virtue. Over time, the person who trains in this way becomes like the Stoics of old, steady, calm, unshaken. They no longer pray for lighter burdens, but for stronger shoulders. They no longer demand a calmer world, but bring calm into the world themselves. The Stoic vision of mastery was not the mastery of kings who sought to control nations or generals who sought to conquer lands. It was a subtler, deeper mastery, the mastery of the self. For what use is it to command legions if you are a slave to your own fears and desires? What profit is there in wealth if anger consumes you? The Stoics turned mastery inward, believing that the greatest victory is to govern oneself. To them, fortune was a goddess with a wheel, spinning men up and down without warning. One day you are honored, the next disgraced. One day wealthy, the next destitute. To build your life on fortune was to build a house on shifting sand. But virtue was different. Virtue was the solid rock that storms could not erode. The man who anchored himself in wisdom, courage, and justice carried mastery with him wherever he went. He could be banished like Musonius, enslaved like Epictetus, condemned like Seneca, or burdened with power like Marcus, and yet remain free, whole, and unbroken. He who conquers himself is greater than he who conquers a city. This truth, echoed in different words by Stoics and sages alike, captures the heart of their vision. To conquer the external world is temporary. To conquer the self is eternal. Anger subdued today can flare tomorrow if not mastered. Fear overcome in one battle may return in the next if not continually faced. But when the soul learns true mastery, when wisdom rules perception, courage rules action, and justice rules intention, then no external force can enslave it. This mastery does not make life easy. The Stoics did not promise comfort, health, or wealth. They promised something greater: resilience, meaning, and freedom. Mastery means you do not escape pain, but you are not broken by it. You do not avoid loss, but you are not destroyed by it. You do not control fortune, but fortune cannot control you. This is why the Stoics faced chaos not with despair, but with calm, even gratitude. For each storm was an arena to prove their mastery. Each trial was another opportunity to live the philosophy they cherished. Thus, the Stoic vision of mastery is simple yet profound. The world is chaos, but the soul can be order. Fortune rules what happens to us. Virtue rules who we become in response. To live by virtue is to master life's chaos, not by silencing it, but by transcending it. And in that transcendence lies the only true freedom. Return for a moment to the storm we began with, the winds howling, the waves crashing, the chaos pressing in from all sides. This is life as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. Fortune is fickle, the future uncertain, and the ground beneath us never as firm as we imagine. And yet, the Stoics did not despair at this reality. They embraced it. For in the storm they discovered the stage upon which virtue is revealed. Without chaos, wisdom has no need to guide us. Without fear, courage cannot be proven. Without conflict, justice cannot be exercised. The storm is not our enemy, it is our teacher. Wisdom teaches us to see clearly, to separate illusion from truth, control from the uncontrollable. It shows us that most of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. With wisdom, we learn to conserve our strength for what is ours and to release what never was. Courage teaches us to act despite fear, to endure what we cannot avoid, to rise again when we are struck down. It does not promise the absence of pain, but the presence of strength. Justice teaches us to live beyond ourselves, to remember that life is not only about enduring, but about serving. It anchors us in duty, harmony, and the recognition that our own flourishing is bound to the flourishing of others. Together, these virtues form the unshakable triad that allows us to stand firm when the world is unsteady. Think of Marcus Aurelius, writing by the dim light of a lamp after long days of war and plague, reminding himself to be patient, just, and steady. Think of Epictetus, once a slave, teaching young men that true freedom lies in governing one's own mind. Think of Seneca, calmly meeting death with words of comfort for his friends. These men were not immune to chaos. They lived in its heart. But they chose to let chaos refine them instead of ruin them. They remind us that we too can face storms, not with despair, but with calm strength. Do not wait for the world to settle before you find peace. The world will never settle. The winds will always shift. The waves will always rise. Instead, choose to become the calm within the storm. Choose wisdom over confusion, courage over fear, justice over selfishness. These virtues are not far from you. They are within you, waiting to be practiced. Each decision, each day, is an opportunity to strengthen them. Each moment of chaos is another chance to master yourself. This is the Stoic call. Do not seek to control what you cannot. Do not fear what you must endure. Do not live only for yourself. Instead, live by virtue. Fortune may strip you of wealth, health, or reputation, but it cannot strip you of the choice to live wisely, bravely, and justly. That choice is yours, today and always. The storm will rage tomorrow as it does today, but you can walk into it differently. You can walk with clarity, with strength, with purpose. You can live above the chaos, not because the storm is gone, but because you have become stronger than the storm. The Stoics gave us the map. The virtues are still here. The choice is yours.